Welcome back to another SMITE patch notes video, and in this one we're taking a look at the newest goddess coming to the game as well as the rest of the patch. She is a Yoruba guardian, and that is Yemoja. I believe that's how you say it. She is the goddess of the rivers, and she's obviously a guardian. So her kit will start off with her basics and kind of passive. It's weird, she doesn't have mana or anything like that. She has this new thing called Omi. We'll start with her basic attacks first. Her basic attacks, she can hit allies in a larger radius and pass through them, stopping on the first enemy hit. Doing this is going to heal them for 1 plus 0.2 per level every 0.5 seconds, and 10% increased healing for 7 seconds. Her basic attack healing does not proc item effects, so that's pretty cool. She has like just a built-in heal just from whacking enemies. Omi is her kind of resource of how she actually casts abilities. You can unlock additional Omi once you buy items that have mana and mana per 5. You get it at 300, 450, and 600 mana from your items. So her abilities obviously do not cost mana, and only her ultimate has a cooldown. Instead, Yemoja uses Omi to cast spells. She starts with 7 and is able to earn up to 10. She gains 1 Omi every 5 seconds, and cooldown reduction increases Omi regeneration. Basic attack healing only affects gods and does not proc item effects. We already went through that. So basically, it's almost hard to explain how it works unless you're in game. So I'm not even going to get into that until a later video. But Bouncing Bubble is her first ability, and her first ability has 2 parts. First one is Bouncing Bubble. Second one is Moonstrike. So the first one, Bouncing Bubble, you toss out a bubble that bounces twice, dealing damage and then slowing enemies by 30% before exploding into smaller bubbles that deal 50% damage. So you can kind of control where it goes, and it just is what it sounds like, bubbles that bounce out. Kind of think the closest thing I could explain it to is Discordia's ability, where it kind of just bursts out into smaller balls. Kind of like that, but not really. Enemies hit by both bubble bounces take 50% damage on the second hit. So it deals 40 to 200 damage plus 40% of your magical power. The slow duration is 1.2 up to 2 seconds, and it's going to cost you 2 Omi. After that, again, your part 2 for your first ability is Moonstrike. Calls upon the moon to deal damage to enemies below. The inner strike is the largest, dealing full damage and stunning all enemies, and enemy structures hit. So you can actually stun the towers with this, which is pretty cool. I think it is, from what I remember from the patch notes, it is kind of a skill shot though, timing the stun right, but I could be wrong. The inner damage is going to be 50 to 210 plus 55% of your power. Outer damage is 20 to 100 plus 20%. It's going to stun starting at 1 second all the way up to 1.4, and again costs 2 Omi. So altogether, your first ability, if you do both parts, is going to cost you 4. Her second ability, Bending Waters, she sends out a wave of water that damages all enemies it passes through. It's just a simple line ability. It deals extra unmitigated damage to their shields, so it's basically like an anti-shield ability. Once the wave reaches an ally, it bounces to all nearby allies, healing and shielding them for 3 seconds. So it's a damage and anti-shield to the enemies, and it's a heal plus a shield to your allies, which is pretty cool, and it can bounce up to you as well. So it's going to do 50 to 170 damage plus 40% power to your enemy. The bonus damage to shields is 2 times all the way through until the last rank. You're going to have a 3 times. I'm not quite sure how the shield works, if it just takes away the shield completely, if it just does extra damage. I'm guessing it just does extra damage to the shield. So like basically instead of it doing 50 at first rank, it would do 100. Heal is going to be 20 to 100 plus 20% of your power, and it's going to shield for 40 up to 200, again plus 20% of your power, and this is going to cost 3 Omi to use. Yemoja, her third ability is called Riptide. She creates a water ring that knocks up everyone that enters it. So again, this is kind of hard to explain. Think of it almost as like a Yanis, I just said that so bad, Giannis portal, Yanis, oh my gosh. It's like Janice and Giannis combined. A Giannis portal, but you can put it anywhere. It doesn't have to go on a wall. And instead of just like teleporting them through a wall, it just kind of launches them forward or backwards. So you can either use this to help your allies escape something, or if an enemy is running away, you can use it to pull them back. Allies are pushed further and gain both movement speed and protections for 3 seconds. Enemies go a shorter distance and are slowed. After entering a ring, you are briefly locked out of entering another. Umoja can place a ring at the maximum distance to reverse the direction. So basically, if you place it, I guess if you just place it anywhere, it's going to send you forward, and then if you place it at the maximum direction, it sends you back. That's my guess. Movement speed boost is going to be 20 all the way up to 40%. It's going to give you 20 to 40 protections for both physical and magical. It's going to slow for 30% for 2 seconds on enemies, and the ring lasts for 6 seconds each. And you can put out multiple of these rings. Again, I'm not sure how the cool, because there's no cooldown, so I know you can put out multiple things at once. So as long as you have Omi available, I'm just not sure how many you can put out at once. If you can just spam it, and then once you run out, you have to wait or something. I'm not sure. Again, we'll have to take a look at that in game. And finally, her ultimate, River's Rebuke. This one's interesting. It's really cool. It just basically spawns 2 giant waves that, like, remember Finding Nemo? Go around, not swim through? Yeah, well, this is basically swimming right through 2 giant waves. And your allies can pass through it, basically, but the enemies can't. So you can use this to peel, you can use this to kind of hide and just gank someone or a whole group of people. Really use it strategically. So she unleashes her full power, creating 2 large walls of water, block enemy movement and projectiles. After a delay, the river cascades down, damaging, trembling, and slowing enemies. Yemoja gains a buff to her Omi regeneration while she is in the river field that lingers briefly after she leaves it. So it's going to do 240 to 500 damage plus 70%. It's going to slow for 90% at first, decreasing by 30 each second. It's going to do that for 3 seconds, and Emoji's going to get 1 regeneration extra every 2 seconds. The buff is going to last for 4 seconds after leaving the area, and it has a 100-second cooldown. So a really, really unique kit. Really no damage that I could see. I'm sure you can find a way to do some sort of damage, but this is like a full just support build and like map control, and just really unique, and I am definitely loving it. So for the skins in this patch, we have the Odyssey. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Odyssey skins. I'm guessing one of these is going to be the reward. So we have Cute Cultivator Persephone.
It's not easy being a farmer. There's just so many things you need to keep tabs on. Oh, I need a nap.
Next up, Whirlwind Tech Xingtian.
You humans really know how to build a good war machine.
You know, I'm generally not a fan of these type of skins, but this actually looks really good on Xingtian. I might actually like this one. Dawn Defender Thor.
Make sure you kids have your daily dose of Thorios, packed full of thunder and lightning.
This just reads like Androxus from Paladins for some reason. Swift Scurrier Neath. Man, how many skins does she have at this point?
I may be small, but I assure you, I am not timid. Let's show these bandits who they're messing with.
This is a really good skin, though. I think Mercury could have used this skin. That would have been a really good Mercury skin. Wise Wizard Merlin.
It has been a while since my metal has been tested, but do not underestimate this old man.
So I'm going to guess that this is the bonus, just out of a guess. And then for the Halloween chest, we're going to have 2 skins. First up, we have Horrific Harvester Opwash.
Those who refuse to pay tribute will suffer and starve.
Fantastic skin. This is fantastic as well, too. Bloody Butcher Ymir. That is... I'm going to have to see this in-game, but just based on the card art, this might bump up into my top 5 skins. This looks freaking awesome.
What interesting new things have you brought for me to butcher today, huh?
Wow, yeah, definitely loving the aesthetic on that. Radical Rex Shock is going to be in the Retro Rex chest.
Let me do some quick push-ups. My guns need to look ripped for the fight.
And then obviously we have the Mastery skins for Yemoja, and that's a beautiful card art right there. I love the sharks in the wave there. So everything we have Yemoja and the, what is it? Cute Cultivator Persephone and the Wise Wizard Merlin. So that is not the bonus one. I guess these are the 2 purchasable ones that'll be available on October 15th along with Yemoja, as well as the stuff in the Halloween chest. And then on the 22nd, Whirlwind Tech Xingtian will be available. October 29th, Swift Scurrier Neath and the Retro Rex chest, and then finally November 5th, the Dawn Defender Thor will be available. These dates are subject to change, however. So, the Esports profile cosmetics that are coming to the game. Each item will be direct purchase for 200 gems, and a portion of the proceeds go to the specific organizations whose item you bought. All current SPL organizations have a new jump stamp and award skin, except for Obey, who joined the SPL late in the season. All current SPL organizations that have had profile cosmetic items introduced before Season 6 will have all of their content re-released. Some organizations will have more or less content due to the amount of previous release time. This content will remain available for purchase in-game until the launch of Season 7, and you can find the list of items in the context update below. I'm not going to go ahead and read through all of this, but you can pause that if you want. Take a look at what teams have which cosmetics coming to the game. Next up, again, we have bug fixes here. I'm not going to read over them, but if at any point you want to pause it, you're more than welcome to and go ahead and read them. I just don't feel a need because why read bugs that are no longer in the game? Project Olympus, early surrender improvements. When a team chooses to surrender early, that match will not count for or against any player's MMR on either team. TP will still work as it currently does. The team who surrenders won't lose TP, while the team who won will gain reduced TP. The player who left causing early surrender will become enabled. To become enabled will still lose double the amount of TP they would have lost otherwise, but their MMR will be unaffected. Data-driven auto buy. So this is the really interesting thing that I'm kind of excited about. Not that, actually, you know what? This might be useful. This might be really useful. I don't know how many new players are coming into SMITE still, but I figure there's, still some. So this is going to help out a lot. Basically, a new algorithm will determine the items that show in the auto buy section, basically. You use data for each god in Conquest only in victorious high MMR matches. It'll also evaluate your team composition and the enemy team composition to adjust builds, so even within the same data set, you might get different auto-buy builds depending on things like facing more magical or physical enemy gods, which is really useful for, like, let's say you're a new player that gets thrown in for some reason to an advanced team and they're all running Guardians and your auto-buy is like half physical. You're screwed. So that's going to help a lot in that situation. Popular and recommended items will now display in the most common build order as well. So both tabs as well as auto buy will now display or purchase players the most successful builds in order with a few additional options displayed as well. This data will be regularly updated. The exact frequency of data refresh is still being determined, live testing, and blah 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 blah. Conquest, currently it will use Conquest data for all builds and all modes. We are looking to ways to expand the system to all modes. So right now it's just taking in Conquest data, which is still better than nothing than it was before, that's for sure. Only one exception will be made. Assassin's Blessing will be replaced by Attacker's Blessing when the data would auto-buy this for you in non-Conquest modes. So we'll be now using the new data popular tab. Items tagged as starter will remain unchanged for the time being, relics as well as consumables. Core items will now be populated by the new feature. Offensive and defensive items were previously misleading, appearing to be recommended building damage on tanks or defense on DPS. Offense has been named to Core 2, defense is now situational. Autobuy will continue to buy items for recommended using data for new gods. We will be using data from similar gods while we gather matches for the algorithm. For example, Yemoja will initially use data from Sylvanas. I guess that kind of makes sense. I mean, that's probably the closest thing I can think of. Sylvanas being really, again, another non-damage god, unless you want to go attack speed. That's intense. Player behavior updates. Updates to the bad word filter list to better catch players trying to bypass it. Shadow banning. Players who engage in certain negative chat behaviors will have their ability to send chat messages removed, but they will not get any feedback to indicate their messages have not been sent. Chat gag. A new penalty that can be applied to players' accounts, limiting the amount of messages they have available to send. When triggered, players will have a limited number of messages, VGS commands, and pings they can send. As the match continues, they will slowly gain more. As the players who are chat gag play games and they do not engage in negative behavior, these restrictions will become less intense. Automated instance reporting based on actions players engage in the game. The match instance itself can report players. That's odd. Players are adjusted back end behavior systems to utilize this automated instance reporting more directly. We will rely on player reports above all else, but this will help basically make it more efficient. Ping text notification. When a player pings the minimap, a chat message will be generated that indicates which player pinged the map. This will only occur once within a 5-second period. So we have a old/new game mode coming. Classic Joust is returning, but with a new flavor. All your favorite Classic Joust action will be playable for the entire month. This update is live. The map has had an environment art update to have fit this season. Basically, it's Halloween themed. Oh yeah, there. Spooky Halloween. There we go. Not just Halloween, spooky Halloween. No gameplay changes have been made to the map. For queues, added a hard difficulty to co-op and practice. Easy and medium difficulties have been rebalanced. Practice queues have been moved to the training tab. So for item balances, Assassin's Blessing now provides 50 health, increased the mana restored from 20 to 25 per trigger of its passive. Blackthorn Hammer increased the cost to 2200. Heartseeker increased the cost to 3100 and also fixed an issue where the item was providing 70 physical power instead of 75. Achilles gets a basic attack range increase from 12 to 16 and updated the basic attack animation to better represent this. Wash now applies a 40% reduction in healing for 5 seconds with his Undead Surge. That's a pretty big healing amount. Kukul Khan gets an increased base health from 365 to 380, increased health per level from 68 to 75, and an increased movement speed from 355 to 360. His Whirlwind also increased the rate at which the Whirlwind attempts to apply or refresh the damaging effect on a player in the area. Used to be every 0.5 seconds, is now 0.25. This means from the initial cast, it will now take 1.75 seconds for a player to be hit by a Whirlwind dot, down from 2 seconds. It will also more quickly refresh, increasing the chances the enemy will take additional ticks after leaving the area. Now deals 1 additional tick of damage when the first applied to the enemy. Persephone getting a whole bunch of changes here. Her pomegranate seeds, her harvest plants now deal 50% damage while in her revived state to match Persephone's damage reduction. Persephone now gains 100% of her mana back when entering her death state. Added a brief lockout so players cannot accidentally cancel reviving themselves. Bone Rush, the damage area of Bone Rush is now a rolling line track, meaning players close to the explosion are hit earlier than those far away. Okay. Added an intro sound to give the players better feedback when this ability has been cast, and the damage area now displays a warning targeter. Harvest max count has been decreased from 10 at all levels. It's now 6, 6, 8, 8, and 10. Harvest now displays a buff bar counter to indicate how many harvest plants are active. New minimap icon for Persephone's harvest plants. Increased the harvest explosion scaling from 75 to 80%, increased the bite scaling from 85 to 90%, and decreased the subsequent damage reduction. Used to be 50 to 87.5, is now 40 to 78%. Huge balances there. Reijin gets an increased bounce damage, base bounce damage tick on Reiju. Used to be 9 to 33, is now 14 to 50, and an increased bounce damage tick scaling from 8% to 10%. That's a mouthful right there, all that. Set gets decreased base damage on Kingslayer. Used to be 25 to 85, is now 25 to 65. And as well as a decreased damage scaling. Used to be 25%, is now 30%. Decreased the base healing as well. Used to be 45 to 105, is now 45 to 85, and it also increased the healing scaling from 25 to 20%. So basically, increased the damage scaling. Okay, there we go. Had to think that through for a second. I haven't really played set at all. Updated description to make it more clear that only sets attacks mark enemies. So back, Charge Prey gets a decreased cooldown, used to be 15, is now 13 seconds. Sickening Strike, increased the damage from 60 to 220, is now 80 to 220, a little bit more early game there. Tyr gets some changes here on his Fearless, no longer disarms enemies, but it now knocks them up. Shibalanke, Poison Darts, increased the poison slow from 4 to 20%, is now a flat 20% at all ranks. That is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to drop a like and hit subscribe for more content like this. Right now, PTS is not working for me. It hasn't been working at all since yesterday, since it went live. Haven't been able to use it. So whenever it does, I will try to get all of these skin videos out, as well as obviously the new goddess. But I'm not quite sure when that's going to happen, but I will try as soon as I can. So thank you for watching.